Now, many people think that brands are just symbols for identification purposes, and you've got 10 symbols up here. Now, I would suggest that only one of those symbols up there actually represents a truly significant global brand. So, of course, number 10 is the brand that most people, or the symbol of the brand that most people don't necessarily recognise, and that's for Cambridge University. So a very, very strong, powerful brand, but with a symbol that's not as widely recognised. The point for me is to illustrate that having a symbol doesn't mean that you actually have a brand, and similarly, you can have a very, very strong brand without having a well-recognised symbol. So if we move on, we can think of 10 brands which, 10 brand symbols, which I'm sure most of you will recognise virtually all of them. Perhaps the one in the middle might not be familiar to you. But as well as being symbols, most brands are also obviously trademarks. And trademarks are designed to protect the owners of the brand and their business assets. Now, we sometimes get stuck in defining a brand, and of course academics and practitioners will do battle to derive the best definition. You've got up there a definition which you'd find in many textbooks, for example. But I'd like to take you a step back to where the word brand comes from, and it's actually from the Old Norse, brandr, if I've got that pronunciation wrong, please forgive me, meaning to burn. And it refers to the practice of producers burning their mark or brand onto their products. And many of you will be familiar with the idea of branding cattle. Industrialization moved the production of many household goods from the community into big factories. And when shipping these items, the factories would literally stamp or brand the barrels on which they were being transported, extending the meaning of the word brand then to the trademark, or more closely to what we understand it today. And if you think about signatures on paintings, like Leonardo da Vinci's, that's a nice early example of what branding does. One of the most eminent of advertising practitioners, David Ogilvy, has a slightly more pragmatic definition of branding. And if we think about the earliest known brand in the UK would be Lyle's Golden Syrup, which basically has changed very little for those of you who have a tin in your cupboard since it started in 1885. So branding is not a new activity. So it's more than a symbol, and I would argue that it's actually more than a bundle of elements. Because a brand is a guarantee. And I think more than a guarantee, one of the ways to convey the meaning of a brand is as a promise to deliver something which a consumer values. And you can then think about how brands break promises. And there are lots of examples of brands doing that with spectacular success or failure, depending on which way you look at it. Perhaps the most notable one in recent times has been Toyota, where the brand promise focused on quality and safety. And the problems they had in 2010 greatly damaged the brand, especially because the company actually knew about the problems before they actually acted in trying to solve them.